Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen didn't show up for work, so I fired her. After that, cheat on your wife? I'll ruin your life. And after that, a customer wants to sue me for stealing his phone. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen has to play the new Pokemon Snap. Hey, now we're talking, Reddit boy. While she's blindfolded. Yeah. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen didn't show up for work, so I fired her. I own a vape shop. We're a small business, only 12 employees. One of my employees, Peggy, was supposed to open yesterday. Peggy has recently been promoted to manager after 2 solid years of good work as a cashier. I really thought she could handle the responsibility. So I wake up 3 hours after the place should be open, and I have 22 notifications on the store Facebook page. Customers have been trying to come shop, but the store is closed. Employees are showing up to work, but they're locked out. I call Peggy and get no response. I text her, same thing. So I go in and open the store. An hour before her shift was supposed to be over, she calls me back. I ask her if she's okay, and she says she needed to take a mental health day and do some self-care. I'm still pretty upset at this point, but I'm trying to be understanding as I know how important mental health can be. So I ask her why she didn't call me as soon as she knew that she needed the day off. Her response, I didn't have enough spoons in my drawer for that. Frankly, I don't know what that means, but it seems to me like she's saying she cannot be trusted to handle the responsibility of opening the store in the AM. So I told her she had 2 choices. 1, go back to her old position with her old pay. 2, I fire her completely. She's calling me all sorts of names now and says that I'm discriminating against her. None of this would have been a problem if she simply took 2 minutes to call out. I would have got up and opened the store on time, but this no-call, no-show crap is not the way to run a successful business. I think I might be the jerk here because I'm taking away her promotion over something she really had no control over. But at the same time, she really could have called me. So Reddit, I leave it to you. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk? Or is Peggy? Please let us know. After sitting here listening to Reddit Boy every day for the past 3 years, I think I could use a day off myself. Cheat on your wife? I'll ruin your life. This happened about 4 years ago, but I recently found out how part of my revenge plan panned out, which is what prompted me to post this. I have never shared this with anyone before. Background. My mom has been best friends with Eileen, not her real name, since they were both kids, and Eileen has kind of been like an aunt to me. About 5 years ago, Eileen's husband of more than 25 years surprised her by asking for a divorce. Eileen lived about 6 hours away from her mom at the time, and I lived out of state, so I didn't find out how everything went down until a few months after their divorce was finalized. Unfortunately, Eileen's life kind of spiraled out of control after the separation and divorce. She developed depression and a drinking problem. But my mom and some other childhood friends were able to convince her to move back to her hometown, and then they convinced her to go to rehab. I moved back home shortly before Eileen went to rehab, and because my school/work schedule was pretty flexible, I was able to house sit and take care of some stuff while she was in rehab. The first time I visited her in rehab, I got the whole divorce story, and it was bad. Eileen's ex, Jeff, also not his real name, hadn't talked to Eileen about any problems prior to asking for a divorce, so she just assumed he fell out of love with her. But I was immediately skeptical about the things Eileen told me. First, Jeff, who was an executive at a pharmaceutical company earning mid-6 figures, was fired from his job a year before they split up and decided to take a break before looking for another job. It was weird to me that Jeff decided to take a break from work because he had always been such a workaholic. Eileen hasn't worked in years because of a disability, but she has some property and a trust her parents left her that lets her live a comfortable life without working. Jeff and Eileen lived off money from the trust while he was unemployed. Then, after Jeff said he wanted a divorce, he refused to go to couples therapy or talk about why he wanted a divorce. The only thing he would say was that they had grown apart and that he was sick of being with someone like Eileen. He said Eileen's mother was right about her. Eileen's mother was a classic narcissist and had bullied her for her whole life, which caused a lot of problems that Jeff knew about. Finally, right after the divorce was finalized, Jeff moved out of state, but to a state he didn't have any family or connections in. Jeff's parents are still alive and in their 80s and 90s, and Jeff is pretty close to them, so it didn't make any sense to me why Jeff wouldn't move to be closer to them if he wanted to move after the divorce. I didn't say anything to Eileen because I didn't want to upset her, but I thought Jeff might have been having an affair, had orchestrated his unemployment to avoid paying alimony, and then moved out of state to be with his mistress. I just didn't have a way to confirm it at the time. The investigation. Then Eileen asked me to look for a box of Jeff's stuff he had asked her to hold for him until he moved into his new apartment. She told me all the info on the box, contents, and his new address was in an email he sent her, and she gave me the password to her computer so I could access the email. This is where I lucked out. It turns out Jeff had used her computer and set up his email on the computer. I accidentally clicked on the app for his email when I was searching for Eileen's email. I decided to take a peek at his email. The first thing I noticed was that he had mostly stopped using that email address 3 years before, which was about 1 year before he was fired. In a folder for digital receipts, I found a confirmation email for a dating site, which I think he saved there accidentally. I also found a verification email for a new email address. I started to put together a speculative timeline of what happened. I guessed that about 3 years before, Jeff started an affair, and shortly after, he decided to get a new email address to help keep the affair secret. I wanted to access his dating profile to get more information, so I tried to use the forgot password feature to see if I could generate an email that would allow me to reset the password and log in that way. Unfortunately, the dating site didn't recognize Jeff's old email address. I thought I might be able to get into Jeff's new email using his old email to reset the password, and then maybe I could use the new email to get into the dating website. But I didn't want to risk locking Jeff out of his new email and alerting him until I knew more about what he had done. And here's where I totally lucked out. The email app Jeff downloaded to Eileen's MacBook had a note feature, and super genius Jeff saved some passwords on notes. Most of the passwords weren't helpful, but I did get the password to the dating site and his Twitter and Netflix accounts. I logged into the dating site using his new email address and the password. I was able to read messages Jeff sent to another woman before he broke up with Eileen. The new mistress sent Jeff her email address and one of the messages. I searched Facebook for the mistress's email address and found her profile. I couldn't read her posts, but she left her photos public. She had recent photos of her and Jeff, so I knew they were still together. She also posted a photo of a construction crew breaking ground on a new home for her and Jeff, which was interesting because I got the impression from Eileen that Jeff didn't have a lot of money after the divorce. Here's where my background is important. At the time I was attending law school, I moved back to my hometown for 1 semester for a legal residency, and I had access to Lexis database, specifically their public records database. I had spent a good portion of one of my summer internships tracking down property records and other assets to help recover judgments for clients, so I knew how to search for public records. The mistress had purchased several acres in a wealthy suburb several months before Jeff filed for divorce, and there was no mortgage listed on the record. I had already found her LinkedIn page, so I knew that she worked as an executive assistant before she moved out of state with Jeff. She didn't advertise her salary, but I doubted she could have afforded the property with her salary alone. It's possible she had money outside her salary, but I suspected Jeff gave her money to purchase the land before he filed for divorce. I also found an updated record in Lexis showing Jeff and the mistress as joint owners of the property. I called the county records office to confirm ownership of the property, dates, etc. The mistress had filed a quitclaim just 5 weeks after Jeff's divorce was finalized. I was still hesitant to try to log into Jeff's new email, so I decided to check his old email again to see if there was anything else I should investigate before moving to the new email. I didn't find anything, but I noticed that several passwords in his notes were the same. I decided to try to log into his new email using the same password he used for the dating site. I figured the two accounts were created around the same time, so if he had recycled a password, that was the most likely candidate. It worked. His new email was a goldmine. Because this story is already getting ridiculously long, I'll list some of the relevant stuff I found. Jeff hadn't been fired from his old job. He quit and lied to Eileen. I found an email from his admin asking where to have payroll send his last check and details about a goodbye party for him. Some emails between Jeff and a boat repair person mentioning a leak somewhere on one side of the sailboat near the engine compartment. The repair guy couldn't find the source of the leak, but he talked about the current and future problems with mold and the engine on that side. Emails between Jeff and a boat broker which included the email address of buyers further down in the string. An emailed report from the boat inspector which didn't include the leak or any mold damage or potential damage to the engine. Emails between Jeff and his contractor about changes made to the new house's sunroom, something about a 3-season sunroom versus a 4-season sunroom, and the construction needing to be modified to deal with the weight of snow. Emails between Jeff and the mistress. They had married. The mistress and Jeff shared a calendar. Some flirty emails between Jeff and another woman. Emails with info on Jeff's new employer. I downloaded all of the important emails and their attachments and started thinking about a revenge plan. Revenge. To my mind, everything was fair game. He lied about being fired, so I wanted him fired from his new job. I suspected he hid his money before his separation from Eileen to help pay for his new house, so I wanted him to lose his house. He cheated, so I wanted to destroy his new relationship. Anything I could do about the boat was a bonus. The easiest place to start was the boat. I had no idea if the source of the leak was found and repaired, or if the leak was verbally disclosed to the buyer. But I figured Jeff was a lying jerk, so odds were fair he hid the info from the new buyer. I sent the emails between Jeff and the repairman and another copy of the inspection to the buyer. I searched Jeff's county court website 5 to 6 months later and found out the buyers had filed a lawsuit against Jeff and the broker and inspector. I couldn't figure out how to take or destroy Jeff's house, so I settled for contacting the county inspector's office to complain about the sunroom not being up to code. This is actually what prompted me to write this post, because I just found out some details about what happened with the county inspectors. Keep in mind, I heard about this from a third party years after the fact, so I don't know all the details. It turns out the sunroom was code compliant, but the inspector did find a workshop/workroom attached to the detached garage that wasn't on the original permit or plans. The workshop had a bathroom that the contractor attached to the property's septic system after the initial inspection. A mutual friend of Eileen and Jeff told Eileen and me, and he guessed this was a big deal because the size of the septic system they installed wasn't sized to handle the additional input, but I don't know for sure. Jeff had to pay a fine and the workshop had to be removed. This ended up causing construction delays, which will become relevant below. As for destroying Jeff's marriage, my first impulse was to send the new wife the flirty emails between Jeff and the other woman. But when I searched for that woman on social media, I couldn't find anything. I had no way of knowing if the new wife knew of the other woman and would think that the emails weren't important or evidence of an affair. Then I played around with the idea of updating Jeff's dating profile and sending stuff to his wife. But it would take too long to manufacture a fake relationship with real dates and times, and I was worried that Jeff might get an email alert from the dating site that would clue him in. I ended up just risking that the new wife wouldn't know the other woman. I pretended to be someone concerned about an affair between Jeff and the new woman. Overall, I kept accusation vague, but I did say Jeff and the new girl went out to eat and to the movies on a few dates. Jeff's shared calendar said the new wife was out of town. I couldn't come up with a way to get Jeff fired. I rechecked his email and calendar over several weeks looking for something I could use to get him fired. Eventually, my legal residency got too busy to devote much time to revenge, so I decided to just let it go. Eileen recently reconnected with a friend she shared with Jeff, and that friend gave Eileen an update on Jeff. Eileen shared the details with me, and that's what reminded me of what I did and prompted this story. It turned out that I didn't need to worry about sabotaging Jeff's career. By luck, the woman Jeff had been emailing was actually his assistant at his new job, and Jeff's new boss was his brother-in-law. Jeff and his new wife actually moved to her hometown so she could be closer to her family, and so Jeff could go to work for his new brother-in-law. I have no idea if Jeff actually was cheating. He told a mutual friend that passed this story on to Eileen that they hadn't been having an affair. It didn't matter to new wife though, because she and Jeff got together when Jeff was already married. She didn't have a lot of trust for Jeff. She didn't believe Jeff's denials when I sent the email about him having the affair. She filed for divorce, and Jeff's brother-in-law boss fired him. And since the construction was delayed, the new house wasn't finished when Jeff and his new wife divorced. They had to sell an unfinished home, and Jeff took a big financial hit. Finally, these weren't part of my larger revenge plan, but I am pretty petty, so I took the box of Jeff's stuff, mostly photographs, and threw them away. I told Eileen they must have been lost in the move. Signed both of Jeff's email addresses for a bunch of spam, mailing lists, etc. Deleted his Netflix watch list. posted, retweeted, and liked a bunch of nasty stuff on his Twitter account and deleted all of the accounts he was following. The ending. I never told Eileen what I did because I wanted her to have a plausible deniability, and I didn't want to interfere with her recovery. She doesn't know about the boat lawsuit or the Netflix and Twitter stuff, but she did take satisfaction from his divorce and job loss. I probably would have let it all go if Jeff hadn't had cheated, because I had always really liked Jeff. I always thought he was nice, but I was obviously wrong about him. Nice people don't do the things Jeff did. As far as I'm concerned, Jeff deserved everything I did to him. Do you think OP went too far with his revenge, or did Jeff deserve exactly what he got? Please let us know. Always use two-factor authentication, especially if you're planning on cheating. A customer wants to sue me for stealing his phone. A few years ago, I worked a couple of seasons as receptionist/everything that was needed at an inn in one of those really popular Costa Brava tourist cities. Due to the location, next to the main road that crossed the city, our restaurant was open to everyone, not only the guests. The restaurant had some outdoor tables next to the parking, accessible to everyone, not only for the customers. This is important. A lot of locals used our terrace and parking as a shortcut from the main road to the school that was on the other side. We also were the first restaurant that people that were going to the regional hospital would find. Due to that, every morning we had the ambulances crews eating breakfast. We liked them. They all knew us. My manager very often would make them some discounts. They didn't want us to give them free things. Several times, we had them leaving in a rush before they got a call. They would eventually come back later to pay for everything and apologize that they left without paying. We always told them not to worry about that. Our relationship with most of them was great, mostly because of one man, CG, from now on. One day, CG and his colleagues came to eat lunch after work. It happened to also be one of the busiest days in the restaurant and the inn, so our attention was split between attending to the customers at the tables, at the bar, serving food, clearing tables, and accepting customers to the rooms. Usually, we try to clean the tables shortly after the customer leaves, but that day was chaotic. We were understaffed and starting to become overwhelmed. Even the kitchen staff had to go out sometimes to help clean the tables. So with all that is going on, we didn't even notice when the guy paid and left with his friends. Now to the main event. Apparently, he forgot his phone on the table outside, the closest table to the open sidewalk. We had signs stating that we were not responsible for lost items. He came the next day in his paramedic uniform asking if we had found his phone. I calmly told him that I personally have not, but will ask my colleagues if they did. I checked the lost items box, but nothing was there, nor have any of my colleagues found anything. So when I went back to him and explained that unfortunately we have not, at this point he dropped his nice guy facade and started yelling at me saying, "You don't have respect for what we do for you. I'm sure that you decided to keep the phone for you because you don't earn enough to afford one, you thief. I know it was you because you're the one that served us yesterday. You have to give me my phone back now." I looked at him astonished, still trying to comprehend what just happened, and I say, "Sir, as you know, our terrace is open to everyone, and we are not responsible for items you leave on the tables." Then he went on with, "Don't come at me with that BS. I know you pick up items from the tables when people leave them behind." Me, "Yes, that is if we spot them. Unfortunately, yesterday was a really busy day, and we weren't able to keep up with the cleaning, so we didn't see what was left on your table. That is, of course, if anything was left there." CG didn't like my answer. "How dare you call me a liar? I come here to eat every day, and you offer me this crappy service? I'm going to sue you unless you give me my phone back. Now!" Me, "I see that you don't understand. I can't give you something we don't have here." "Fine, you wanted it," said as he stormed off. I thought that was it. My colleague looked at me surprised. The couple of locals sitting at the counter drinking their beer were also confused. I just got my coffee and went for a break. A day had passed, and as I was doing the closing shift, we closed the restaurant at 11 p.m. and this guy shows up 5 minutes before. "Have you found my phone yet?" "I told you that I can't find something that isn't here." Suddenly, he decided to act calm. "I'm not interested in the phone itself, but on it I had pictures of my kids and our trips. If I don't get it back, I will lose that." Me, "That is really sad. I wish I could help you with that. Trust me, if I would have found the phone, you would get it back." Dropping his act. CG, "You clearly don't care about customer service. You only care about the money." You took my phone and sold it somewhere. I want you to give me my phone back, now, or I'll take legal action. At this point, I was done with this guy. Me. Perfect. Go ahead. As long as you leave now, because it's past closing time. He left quickly, mumbling under his nose. Next day was Sunday. I came to the restaurant for my evening shift, knowing that the next day I had to open too. Usually this doesn't happen unless it's an emergency, because it requires the person that closes the inn to sleep at most 4 hours, because we open at 6 a.m. and closing requires you to stay a couple of hours after closing to get everything ready for the next day. On Sundays is also when the owner of the company comes to eat lunch here with his family. He usually sits close to the register to keep a track on everything and make sure that there's no problems. It's a really calm day. We only have a couple of tables in the restaurant, plus the owner's table. 30 minutes into the shift, CG appears again. He goes straight to the counter and starts his sermon. Are you ready to give me my phone back? Me. I keep on telling you for the last 3 days, we don't have your phone here. If you left it outside, it's your fault. You are all going to regret this. I know the chief of the police. He's going to send the whole CSI here, and they'll find my phone. Your restaurant is going to be closed down. You all are going to regret this. That is, unless you give me the phone. Do you want me to go there as I leave from here? Done with his crap, yet still keeping calm. Me. Look, I don't know what you want to do with your free time when you leave from here. I can barely control what you do when you're inside. If you want to go to the police, go ahead. Just leave and stop disturbing my customers. He storms off, slamming the door behind him. As I turn around and sigh, the owner gets up and comes to me. He asks me quietly to come with him to the kitchen. Once there, he asks me what this was all about. So I explain to him what had happened the last few days. He then says, with a tone of a father trying to cheer up his kid, Owner, you handled it really professionally. I'm glad to have you here. Don't worry about that guy. You haven't done anything bad. If he actually goes to the police, you have no need to talk with them. You're just a worker here. Just give them the number of your manager, and don't make any statements if you don't want to. It's the management's job to deal with it. A few minutes later, the owner left with his family, and my colleague and I returned to our jobs. 2 hours later, the front door opens, and 2 police officers, with clear signs of being annoyed for having to leave their desks to deal with something, enter the restaurant. They come to the counter, and I approach them. Officer, do you know what we are here for? Me. I have a slight idea, but it will be better if you state it, officer. We received a complaint that a phone got stolen here. Me. If you refer to the guy that continues to claim that we stole his phone, no one in the restaurant has an idea what phone he's talking about. Officer. Well, the problem is that the phone has to appear and to be returned to him, or else someone will have to be charged with theft and illegal appropriation. At this point, I've seen where this was headed, and I was too tired of dealing with this matter. Me. Look, officer, I'm just a simple worker here. Since you're threatening the company with legal charges, I will give you the phone number of my manager. I will not say anything else regarding this matter to you. I gave them the number. They thanked me and left. I poured myself some coffee and started to drink it. One of my usual customers sitting at the counter looked at me and said jokingly with his half-drunk voice, You're gonna go to jail, the fallen Polish. We laughed for a moment, and I went back to work. Fortunately, CG didn't come back anymore, and no more police came that day. I seriously thought I had finally got rid of the guy. Silly me. Next day, I get to the inn with 4 hours of sleep and get everything started up. My usual 6 a.m. customers are there sipping their coffee, and suddenly the doors open, and there he is, CG. He comes up to me. I hear one of the guys at the counter say, Not him again. CG. So, did you like the police visit? Are you going to give me my phone back? Me. Can you just get over it? I can't give you something I don't have. I keep on telling you this since last week. CG. I'm going to tell everyone not to come here. All you do is steal from your customers. I'm going to get you fired to get your restaurant closed. I will tell all my colleagues to stop coming here if they don't want to get robbed. I have connections in the newspaper and TV stations. The whole country will know that you steal from your customers. You are going to get cancelled. And he left. I just dropped my hands and sighed. The same customer from yesterday said, The fallen Polish. Seems like you're gonna be famous. I laughed and continued with my duties. At 9 a.m., my manager came to work. As he was checking the booking in the system, I approached him. Me. The guy from the phone was here this morning again. He said that he'll go with the story to all the newspapers and TV, that he'll make sure everyone knows how we treat our customers. My manager looked at me and started laughing. That's great. Free advertising for us. We never heard of him again. The ambulance crews kept coming, and his threats remained that. Just threats. Now I know it's long, but I thought that it would be nice to share this with you all. I'm officially done. Yesterday I had made plans in advance, relying on me getting out at 3 p.m. from an opening shift, 10:15 to 3 p.m. The reason I was able to plan this is because I can see everyone's schedules both online and on the paper copy. My replacement was supposed to be there at 3, meaning I could easily get out at 3:05, if not before. That was until my replacement called out at 1:30 p.m. yesterday. I told the manager on the floor that I could only work what I was originally intended to, and she said she'd try her best. It has always been the precedent that as a busser, if your side work is done and your replacement is here, you can leave after checking out with a manager. The floor manager eventually got someone to come in earlier, which meant that I should have been able to go without an issue. 3 p.m. rolls around, and I check out with my busser coworker who I'm leaving behind, and go to a different manager to check out. She then proceeds to argue with me about how no, that's not how we roll, and she's trying to keep me there. I proceed to stand my ground, and she calls in the general manager. The general manager has me come into her office and sit down. They apparently expected me to suddenly work 2 more hours on the fly without even asking me. General manager: So, I heard that you were intending to leave at 3. Why did you make plans? Me: Because I could see everyone's schedules, so my replacement was due to come in at 3 and planned accordingly. So, you just assumed you would be getting off at 3? I guess. Did you call a manager to see when exactly you were to be off? No. I was astounded that I had to even think of calling a manager just to see when I would get off. I don't think management would want all of us constantly calling to make sure we'd be off anytime we want to make after-work plans. GM: Okay, so you assumed you'd be getting off at 3. You know that isn't how our schedules work. Just because it says 10:15 to 3 p.m. doesn't mean you'd be getting off at 3. This really threw me for a loop, because then why bother printing schedules in the first place? You sit here and wonder why people are upset with their schedules when you don't even follow them yourself? I don't say anything. The best I can do is to get you out of here at 4 p.m. Me: That won't work. GM: Have a little bit of compassion. Your coworker's grandmother just passed. You were in a sticky situation too, and people took up for you. This is a reference to when I had to escape a horrible situation and was unable to work. Me: I am truly sorry, but I cannot cover for him. So, you're saying you have to leave right now? Are you sure you want to deal with the consequences? Yes. All right, this will be your final written warning. This cannot happen again. Okay. I'm very disappointed in you. I thought you had a great work ethic. You were mature and responsible. Now my opinion of you has been changed, probably permanently. Okay, that's fine. You're free to go. I'm going to be putting in my 2 weeks Tuesday, along with a written letter disputing the write-up. They tried to get me to sign the write-up, but I declined and said I had a response in writing that I will be submitting. They frustratedly agreed and let me continue my shift tonight. I'm 16. I don't have a car or license, and my ride was waiting for me. I couldn't have just told them to wait another 2 hours. Karen wife constantly lies about me. I finally called her out on it. My wife has been lying a lot lately. She's overly conscious of other people's feelings, and she uses white lies to shift the blame onto others to lessen the blow of a situation, always to her benefit. She will find herself in situations where she wants to back out of weekend plans with her friends or explain why she did something seemingly rude, etc. But she always blames me. My husband doesn't want me to leave this weekend. Sorry, he's such a jerk. Or, I only screenshotted this conversation we had because my husband told me he wanted to see it. Sure, I can handle someone confronting me about this stuff far better than she can. She has high anxiety when it comes to confrontation, but I'm really sick of being her scapegoat and letting people think I'm a selfish jerk. I was watching our kids this weekend while my wife hosted a bachelorette trip for her friend at my wife's aunt's lake house. Last night, my wife calls me and says I can come over with the kids rather than wait till early this morning like planned. I get to the lake house and the girls are all still out at a bar somewhere, so I let myself in and put the kids to bed. My wife's aunt texts her after seeing me on her security camera and tells her that she's upset that I was there. That's weird to me because she and I get along very well, and I'm even renting a house from her. She has really high anxiety, but she manages it well most of the time. She then texts me this morning and begins yelling at me about how I had no right to invite myself over and that I'm a bad father. Naturally, I was shocked and asked her what she meant. Turns out, my wife texted her saying she didn't know I was coming and that I'm an incompetent father and she had to help me because I didn't know how to watch my own kids. I told her that that was not true and that my wife invited me to come because she knew it was closer to my work and I could sleep in rather than get up early to bring the kids. I, of course, confronted my wife about why she would lie about me and say things like that about me. She then gets mad and says she was doing damage control on the situation and that it's far better if her aunt is mad at me than her. So now we're fighting because I, of course, don't appreciate being put in that situation. But my wife thinks it was a necessary sacrifice to keep her aunt happy with her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. I dare you to lie about me, Reddit boy. I'll pop that head of yours like a balloon. Click this button to join as a member today and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. And I dare you to watch this video next. Trust me, that one's crazy.